Welcome back to my hometown. Thanks for taking a little time to join me today. Please welcome my guest today. He is a Texas A&M graduate, a graduate of Texas Wesleyan University Law School. He is a former city council member, our former mayor. He is a husband, a father. He is the owner of Earp Law Firm, and he is a friend of mine for a long time. Please welcome Mr. Brandon Earp.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. We've been trying to get together for a while, and we finally got together. So we're just going to kind of chat today about been here 23 years.
Almost 24 now.
Yeah. So lots going on in that time.
Yep.
So we're going to kind of take it back to when you're little.
Okay.
We're going to take it way back to 4 years old.
You're not going to age me, are you?
We're going to talk about that.
Because you're right there with me.
But they can do the math.
Yeah, that's right.
So 4 years old, you're living in Bowie.
Uh-huh.
And then your parents
Lived down in the Aljo edition on Zahara, or not, Rayburn Street, excuse me, not Zahara. But yeah, the house is still there. I drive by it and I think about that.
And then your parents get divorced?
Mm-hmm. When I was 4. Of course, I don't remember that, but I do know that's when it happened. And Mom and I moved to the Metroplex at that point. Lived in, I think we started out in maybe Hearst, and we lived in Euless for a little while, and then Bedford, and then ended up in Colleyville for high school. Mm-hmm. Well, I guess part of junior high and high school. So. Yeah.
And then that's where you ended up graduating, was Colleyville?
Yeah, well, Grapevine High School. They didn't have a Colleyville High School at that time. Now they do, but yeah, graduated from there in '93. So I just aged myself.
It was probably a smaller school then.
Quite a bit, although still big. I mean, we were 5A. I think we had 2,200 students, something like that. So. But still, it was the only school that covered Grapevine and Colleyville. Now they've got 2 schools that are bigger than that. So, things have changed a little bit. So,
and during your high school years, you met a lady.
I did.
How old were you?
I was 15.
15.
Mm-hmm.
And she was 15?
Yep. Miss Fox's English class in 10th grade.
So did you go up to her, or did she...
Actually, it's a funny story. I guess I'll tell it. We were in Miss Fox's English class, first day of school, and I played football. And
so freshman year, sophomore year?
Sophomore year. I played football, and I was always good at breaking stuff in football, and I had broken a finger. I can't even remember which one it was, but I had it in one of those little finger splints, those little metal finger splints. And I laid it up on the front of the desk, like, kind of like you'd grab the edge of the desk. And those desks, you probably had the same ones. They had those plastic chairs. And when you sat down, if you leaned back any at all, the chair would bend. Well, Tricia sat down right in front of me because at that time, and that's a long story too, our names were similarly spelled. Now I'm E-A-R-P, which I always have been, but at that time I was A-R-P, which is a long story too. But anyway, she leans back, smashes my finger. I mean,
the one
the broken, because it was the one laying up there. My other fingers were like out of the way, but smashes my finger, and I was smitten. I don't know what else to say. It took us a while to get together. We didn't start dating until February of that year, but I'm a little slow in the uptake, I guess. So, but we started dating in February of 1991, and been together ever since. And
coming up on February, because you got married on?
We got married on Valentine's Day. February 14th. This year will be 26 years. So we've been married. Dated for 7 years before we ever got married. So,
So it's been a long...
it has. Yeah, she's known me longer than about anybody other than my parents. So, yeah.
And so that's unusual. 7 years of dating. Because I'm sure there's a lot of goals that both of you want to accomplish during that time.
Yeah.
A lot of times we may be going to college, we'll still get married and all that. So after college, you decided to go to Texas A&M. Had that always been the plan?
For me, it had been. I guess about my sophomore year is when I decided I was going to go to Texas A&M. Tricia was not and did not go to Texas A&M right away. She actually had planned on going to what's now Texas State. Back then it was Southwest Texas State. But that's where she wanted to go, and she had a friend that was going with her, and off they went when we graduated. And I went off to Texas A&M. after about a year and a half, realized that she was spending more time at Texas A&M or me driving to Southwest Texas, and it just didn't make a whole lot of sense. By that point, we knew we were going to get married, so it was, and so she transferred to Texas A&M, and honestly, she's more Aggie than I am. I mean, by far. Her blood is much more maroon than mine ever will be. Yeah.
And you joined the Corps Cadets?
I did. I was in the Corps Cadets for 4 years, and Company E1, and then finished in Company D1. So brigade staff and the whole Corps thing. It was fun. I really enjoyed it. It was hard. I mean, but it was well worth it. So.
And was that the plan to go in the Corps Cadets when you went to A&M? Had that always kind of been the plan?
Yeah, originally the plan was to go in the Corps Cadets. I had an Army ROTC scholarship. I was going to go be, HUA and be in the Army and do all that. And getting married, or the idea that I was going to get married kind of changed my outlook on things, and my plans changed a little bit. And so instead of going into the active duty Army, I ended up joining the National Guard instead, and did that for a while.
And did you, of course, always want to be a lawyer?
No, not at all. We've had this conversation before. To do it for a live audience, I kind of hate to do that. But no, not at all. In fact, if you had told me going into college that I would end up going to law school once I graduated, I would have probably laughed in your face.
What was your initial major?
I started out as a civil engineering major and lasted about 5 weeks before I changed it, and I changed it to wildlife and fishery sciences. It's right over there. And that's what I actually graduated with, was wildlife and fishery sciences. I kind of had this idea that I might either be a biologist or a game warden or something like that. And those dreams did not pan out. And that's a long story too, but they, at that time, being a game warden there weren't very many slots available. I don't know what you call him, the chairman of the Texas Parks and Wildlife or whatever, his daughter was one of my classmates, and we were having dinner one night, and he pretty much just looked at me and said, forget it. Don't think that applying to the Game Warden Academy is a future you're going to have.
Just because it's so challenging?
Just because there was just no openings at the time. Game wardens, at least from what I understand, kind of come in kind of like waves. There'll be a bunch of them, and then there'll be a gap where there's not very many retiring, and then some will retire, And I was just in one of those troughs at the time.
There wasn't any.
Yeah, and he just basically said no. So, to make the long story short, I decided I was going to be a research biologist. I am fascinated by, this is a little much, but large ungulates, which would be like caribou, deer to some extent, but I've hunted deer my whole life, so I don't find them that interesting anymore. But the things that I've not been able to see, I've never seen a caribou in the wild. I've never seen, I've seen moose now, but at that time I'd never seen a moose before, So that kind of fascinated me. So I decided I was going to go that route. So I dug in pretty hard towards the end of my junior and senior year in wildlife, and really enjoyed it. I love the people. The people were fantastic. Loved all my classmates. My professors were great. In fact, my daughter and I were just talking about wildlife classes last night that I had. But yeah, and so what happened was I was going to do the research biology thing and started looking into that, and took the GRE to get ready to go to grad school, because you pretty much, to be a research biologist, you pretty much have to go to grad school. You've at least got to get a master's degree, and you probably need to be thinking about going on your PhD. And at least at that time, I don't know if that's still the same. But so I started looking at that, and one day I was sitting in a buddy of mine's room, and I just commented to him how sure he seemed of his future. He knew what he was going to do. I believe that was the second semester of our junior year, and he was going to go to law school, and he wanted to be a district attorney, and all that stuff, and do criminal defense or criminal prosecution. I'm sorry. And I just commented on how sure he seemed, and he's like, yeah, and he said, I'm taking the LSAT next week, the very next week, and he said. And of course, I was lamenting that I didn't know what I was going to do or where I was going to go, blah blah blah.
And the LSAT is to get into.
Yes, LSAT is kind of like the SAT to get into college, but it's for law school. It's a very, very different test, but you have to take it, and you have to do well to get into the law schools that you want. But anyway, he said, I'm taking it next week. I think it was like on a Wednesday. And he goes, why don't you take it with me? And I'm like, when you're 19, 20 years old, you're like, why not?
Sure.
So I called and was able to get a spot and paid the fee to get to it and went and took it. And I didn't, certainly didn't set the world on fire on my grade, but I did okay. And I did okay enough to where it was like realistic that I could get into a law school. And at that time, my grades in college were decent. I mean, I weren't anything, again, to set the world on fire, but they were decent. And so I went and met with our paraprofessional counselor at Texas A&M, she was phenomenal. And she looked at me and she said, I can get you into law school. Won't be Harvard, but I can get you into one of them. I was like, okay. So I originally decided I was going to do environmental law. And this is kind of getting to that Bowie thing. As I got to know that particular area of the law, I realized that to be an environmental lawyer, you've pretty much got to work in one of the cities where policies are made. I mean, you've got to work in D.C. or Seattle, L.A., big cities, and that's just not me. It's just not me, and I knew it then. I knew enough about myself, at least at that age, to know that wasn't me.
So just by taking the test and talking to the counselor you just think, okay, I'm going to be a lawyer.
Yeah.
It was really that,
It was that easy. I guess in a way I had kind of always thought that way. Not thought that way. That's not really accurate. I guess there was something in me that knew that being a lawyer might be a pretty neat job. You know what I mean? I had talked with my mother about it, and she had told me one time that she had some interest in being a lawyer, and not anymore, but previously in her life, and I guess that kind of stuck with me, and so took the test, met with a paraprofessional counselor, and off we went. I applied to 8 law schools, got into all of them but one, and ended up taking going to the law school that was my what they call your backup school. You got to have a school that you'll get into, but you'll take it if you can't get it anywhere else. And that was one I ended up going to. And I tell you what, they did a great job at Texas Wesleyan. I enjoyed it. I was there 2.5 years. I got out a semester early, and I enjoyed every minute of it. I really did. Law school was hard but fun. Like the people, like the professors. Just had a good experience. And
so then deciding that you didn't want to go into environmental law, then you're in law school, and then what do you decide then, hey, I want to be...
I guess I'm very much a person who's like a jack of all trades, master of none, that kind of person. I like to piddle. I like to do different things. I get bored doing the same thing over and over and over. And so I pretty quickly decided I wanted to be a general practitioner. I wanted to do a little bit of everything. And... general practitioners don't do well in big cities. That's just not how it works. And general practitioners generally are found in small towns. And I only knew one. My family is from I'm going to say the Bowie area. Both sides of my family, when I was growing up, lived in Ringgold. And then when I should say, my dad lived out at the Old Bowie Lake, so that'd be Stoneburg. But and then my grandparents lived in Ringgold, and we lived in the Metroplex. And so, I only knew one small town, and so here I came, and I came up here and kind of surveyed the landscape and decided that I could possibly make a living here, and here I came.
And then you started with a firm that kind of extended out here, and then
God works wondrous things in strange ways, and that's really what happened. Trish and I actually came up here to kind of drive around and look at Bowie. She'd been here before. She'd been to my dad's house in Stoneburg and passed through Bowie many times, so it wasn't like it was bringing her to someplace she's never been. But we came up here with a real eye for, can we do this, And we were walking through a house, believe it or not, a house that was being built over there. I can't even remember the name of the neighborhood. But anyway, it was Carla and John Swafford's house. At that time it was Carla and Dwayne Hamilton's house. And anyway, they, while we were walking through this house that was being built, Carla came in. into the house, and of course I'm like, oh my gosh, I shouldn't be here, But she was super graceful, super nice, and we got to talking, and I told her what I was doing and that I was going to move up here, and she said, well, it's interesting. I'm building a new office for the title company, and the office on the end of our building is going to be rented out by a law firm from Dallas. And of course, I'm like, great. I'm trying to open my own thing, and here I already have a competitor. Other than the lawyers who are already here, a new competitor.
Uh-huh.
And she said, you ought to give them a call. And being young and dumb and whatever, I just did. One day, I just called them and said, hey, and I guess I was a little arrogant, a little prideful, I don't know, but I just said, look, I'm moving up there, I'm going to do this, and we can either compete or we can help each other. Mm-hmm. And from that, I got a job. They hired me to open the Bowie office for their office, and promised me all kinds of things. They're going to come up here and blah, blah, blah. And, none of that panned out, but nevertheless, I got to open an office, and mm-hmm. here we went. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that was originally, I worked for Stone and Bruce PC, Warner Stone and Dan Bruce. Yeah.
And that wasn't very long, a year and a half?
No, it was, let's see, I started in May of 2000, and we broke in July of 2001, so mm-hmm. went just a little over a year. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And where we're sitting in your office now, that's just about, as they might say, a stone's throw away from
really? I can see it through the window.
Yeah. So we just kind of moved over.
Yeah. For 23 years, I've been right here on this street, on Walnut Street. So, mm-hmm. yeah, it's, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? Mm-hmm. So,
and through those years, living in Bowie, you had the opportunity to serve on different organizations, mm-hmm. on the city council, as mayor. Mm-hmm. How was your experience as mayor? What are some things that you learned?
I tell you, most people who've served on city council might think I'm crazy, but I enjoyed every bit of it. I mean, there were things about it that you're just like, come on, people call you on a Sunday, I didn't get my trash. Well, it's Sunday. but I mean, for the most part, I enjoyed it. It was a challenge. Probably most people have never been through the budget process for a city, like Bowie. Mm-hmm. At that time, we had about a $16 million budget. I think it's even higher now, but that was a lot of work to put that together and come up with a way where we could, spend that money and do so in a way that delivers services and experiences and things to our citizens, and not just blow it. I mean, it's fun to have a shiny new fire truck or police car or something like that, but that's not always what's needed and what's best serves the people at the time. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, you can't do everything. The budget's not big enough to do that, and that's where it becomes challenging because you want to. Mm-hmm. I think if as a public servant, you want to give them everything. Mm-hmm. And you can't. And sometimes in certain circumstances, you can't give them anything, and that's hard. So, but I enjoyed it. I had great councilmen. I really did. I served with some good people, and they all. We all kind of meshed and clicked, and it was fun. Mm-hmm. And it's funny. Talking about the people, I didn't expect it to be that way. When I first got elected mayor, I looked at who that was on the council at the time, and I thought, this is going to be painful. Wasn't at all. Was not at all. Everybody was great. Mm-hmm. We got along great. We worked well together. Not a lot of infighting. It just went well. We had a good city manager at that time. It was James Campbell at that time, and James just ran everything smooth. So I'm sure there are people who do disagree with me, but during my time, that's what I saw.
So as you're on the city council, what's the thought process of I want to run for mayor?
Oh gosh. I don't know.
Or is it just like, I'll give it a shot?
Yeah,
I'll take the test.
Yeah, exactly.
Next week, okay.
Yeah, I actually was originally appointed to the Planning and Zoning Commission, and I did that for about a year, I believe, and that was fascinating. See, I love real estate. I love real estate law. I love real estate development. I love just if it has to do with dirt and buildings, I love it. And so planning and zoning was just great. You're thinking at that time we were doing the comprehensive zoning map for the city, and that was super interesting, to look at a full scale map of the city and say, okay, we're going to have this area be this and this, that was pretty cool. But you do planning and zoning for a little bit, and you realize that there's another layer, another level that you can take that thing that you've been doing and kind of be more impactful. And an opportunity came to serve on city council, and I put my application in, was appointed, and served on city council for, I'd be lying, I think 2 years. Don't quote me, but should have brought my resume in here. But served on city council 2 years, and then at that time E.O. Martin was the mayor, and E.O. had some tough things going on when he was mayor, and I just talked to him one day over at City Hall and said, hey, if you're going to run again, then, I don't know that I'm going to do anything, but if not, I plan to run. And he said, well, I don't know that I'm going to or not. And I said, well, I need to know. Nothing ever happened. And finally, I just told him that I'm running. And he said, well, then I'm not. And that's how that worked out. And I didn't have an opponent. So, you can always win those battles.
But it was a good experience.
It was an excellent experience. I wouldn't take for it.
Honestly. So was that a challenge to be mayor and run your practice at the same time?
Not really. I mean, you can do it. I mean, it definitely makes for a full day some days, especially on council nights. We've had council meetings, at least when I was there, that ran until after midnight, and that makes for a long day. But no, I mean, I never really had that much of an issue. It kind of all works together. You do have one issue, and that is conflicts of interest. As an attorney, you have to really watch that, and as mayor, you tend to create them. So there were some times when I had to, kind of step out of cases or turn down cases because of that.
So that's probably a little challenging. I mean, especially when you're in business and you're trying to make money.
Yeah.
And have to.
I mean, like you asked me a minute ago, you said, was it a good experience? It was. I have there's nothing I look back on from that time and think, man, I wish I had done it differently or anything. I guess maybe the only thing would have been, I would have liked to have served longer, than I did. I only served one term, and then we moved outside the city limits, and that was all I could do. But that's really it. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Definitely challenging, definitely very interesting. Good Lord, I learned a lot during that time. It was just things I never knew. And there's no other way to know.
And it's different from being a citizen versus going through all those budget meetings and zoning.
Light years. I would challenge anybody who has any interest in politics to get involved with your city, because it's the ground level of something that's so big. I mean, when you look at, we're in a presidential election year, or about to be, and you look at that, and when I look at that, I look at it a little differently, because I've seen what it takes just to do the bottom rung. I can't imagine what it takes to do that. But you learn so much about how all that works. I enjoy, or I shouldn't say I enjoy, I get a kick out of, I guess, people's complaints about the city, because you read the complaints and it's like, you don't even know what the city does, and you don't know that, we don't have anything to do with some of these things, and then in some things we have a lot to do with it, but I think you need to educate yourself, and you need to, if you have any interest at all, you need to put yourself out there. And I just appreciate people who do, because I think they're going to become better citizens by being, put in that place. Even if you serve one term or half a term. I think if you serve 1 year, which is half a term, you would learn more than you would ever know in a lifetime of just being an average citizen. I really do.
And it's learning and giving back to your community all at the same time.
Absolutely.
And with giving back, you've been in several different organizations. What value do you see being in those organizations?
Well, originally you get, when you're opening up a law practice or any business, you get, oh gosh, you need to be in this organization or that organization to network with other people. And I think that's that is absolutely true. You know, being in all the organizations that I've been in over the years has introduced me to people that I would probably not ever know without that, you know. But that networking, after a few months of that, you realize that that's really not why you're there. And you start to see the good that those organizations do. And it starts to, this is silly, I guess, but it kind of gets in your heart. You know, it kind of gets in there and stirs things around, and you start to see that most of these people, at least to some extent, have the good of the community, the good of other people in mind, and the good that they do. I mean, in some cases, is invaluable. I spent 6 years, I think 5 or 6 years in Lions Club. Loved that organization. It was great. Spent like 20 years, or very close to, in Rotary. Loved that too. It just got to the point where I couldn't make meetings like you're supposed to, and you know, doing Lions and Rotary together became really untenable. I just couldn't do both of them. Yeah. But they do so much different stuff that you know, just the other day I noticed over here at the bank that the Lions Club was standing out there taking donations, and you know, I had a buck on me and threw it in there, and as I'm driving off, I think to myself, you know, what a great deal that they're doing to stand out here in the cold and be willing to do that, you know, to raise money for, in that case, it's for the blind. They collect old eyeglasses and things like that, and they have the camp for the blind and all that. So I don't know, I just think that's great. And I mean, Rotary, we did all kinds of projects when I was in there. Everything from the dictionaries that we give to all the, I believe it's third graders, or fifth graders, one of the two, I can't remember. But from that to, you know, we did the Dancing the Stars thing to raise money for scholarships. I mean, gosh, we did so many things. You know, shoes. We gave shoes to people who couldn't afford them. That stuff, kind of stuff.
And if you notice, it's the repeating theme is get involved. Whether it's city politics,
absolutely.
Whether it's volunteering, whether it's in your organizations, to make a difference in our community, we have to get involved.
Absolutely. You can sit on your couch and watch it happen, or you can get out in it. And you know, I think when you get out in it and get your hands dirty, that you'll learn more and become a better person. And I mean, that's so multifaceted, but I mean, it just is. I mean, you know, how do you learn the best lessons the hardest way? You know, which is, you know, how do you learn not to hold the nail a certain way? By smashing your finger, you know? And that's what getting involved is getting out there and getting dirty and doing the things, getting in the trenches with the people and doing the things that are required for our city. And in the process, you know, you open your mind to learning new things. You open your heart to other people, the plight of other people, and the good that you can do. And it's pretty cool.
I mean, because you do learn by doing. You know, that example of a nail, you can't tell somebody, you know, how to do it and not hit their hand until they hit it.
That's right.
They go, oh, that's not the right way.
I'll never forget. That's right.
And when we do get involved, it helps citizens have a little grace when it comes to city government.
Amen.
And those organizations.
Amen.
To say, okay, I don't, you know, they're doing the best they can, or I don't know all the details.
Yeah.
What are some of the successes that you've enjoyed having a practice in Bowie?
I mean, every day is a success if you want to know the truth. I mean, every day that I'm able to continue to do this is a success. I mean, you know, God made me not to be me, be for me, I should say, but be for Him. And you know, as long as I get to continue to do what I do and do it in such a way that it brings glory and honor to God, that's a success. Now, if you're talking about accolades and awards and that kind of stuff, I mean, there are those, and those are great. I mean, I've got a little deal sitting over there where people that remember Susan Campbell, our Main Street director, when we redid this office, she gave me an award for, you know, for design on the bill. As you know, stuff like that's fun, but I don't know. I mean, being mayor was an award in and of itself. You know, I was the president of the Chamber of Commerce, and that was interesting and a lot of fun. Got my little knife plaque, you know. If you're in Bowie and you don't have a knife plaque, you need to get involved, because that is one of the coolest.
I didn't get involved more.
You got one? I can't believe that Aaron Degler didn't have a knife plaque.
I have to get involved with it.
We'll remedy that. Yeah, that knife plaque is cool. It's a funny thing that the Rotary Club, Bowie Rotary Club, gives away. So Rotary has what's called a district governor, and a district governor is a individual who's in charge. I wouldn't say in charge, but he's kind of the organizational leader of multiple clubs. The district, our district, and I don't even remember the number, like 5790 or something like that, but. The district covers, I think he had something like 40 or 50 clubs that he was in charge of, And when I say that, it's not like he's there running the meetings, but he or she were there, making sure that everybody had what they needed to run their club. And one of the things that they do is every year, those district governors make a point to go to one meeting of every club in their district. So it's so funny because every single one of them in the 20 years I was in Rotary, inevitably they said the best thing about coming to the Bowie Rotary Club is that we get the knife plaque, and everybody looks forward to it because the Bowie Rotary will give them a plaque with a knife on it, a Bowie knife. So that's pretty cool. So yeah, I got two of those suckers. I got one for Chamber of Commerce, and I got one for the being on City Council and Mayor. So that's pretty cool. Yeah. But I don't know. I mean, there's been other things. I've had the blessing of being involved in different organizations, not just locally, but statewide. I got to be on the general practice solo and small firm section of the State Bar of Texas, which is a section of state bar lawyers who specialize in general practice. A lot of them are solo practitioners like I am. Some of them are small firms. We believe the definition of that for that organization was like 5 lawyers or less or something, or maybe it's 10, I don't remember. But anyway, got to be involved in that and stayed on that for several years, for probably 5 or 6 years. Got elected the chairman of that organization. That was pretty neat. Talking about Rotary District Governor, I got to be the assistant district governor. So I had 4 clubs or 3 clubs. Can't remember now, but that's been back in like 2011 or 12, and that was kind of fun because I got to go about once a month to the other clubs and see how they worked and get to eat their food and not have to pay for it, which was cool. Yeah, free meal. But that was neat. I mean, that was a neat experience. But I don't know. I mean, awards are nice, but really the thing is just the feeling you get from serving, whatever that way is.
And then challenge, successes are always great. But I think sometimes we learn from the challenges that are given to us.
Absolutely.
And sometimes the failures, because I think they're the greatest lesson, the greatest way to learn lessons. What are some challenges that you have faced, in business or just in the community? Just because I think in businesses, we've all faced those challenges.
Oh, yeah. From a general perspective, making payroll is always a challenge. And every person who's ever been in business knows that. Keep the lights on, paying the phone bill, all those things. I remember I was meeting with another person who has a small business here in town when I first started, and I don't want to say I was crying, but I was probably close to it. And I was lamenting that, oh my gosh, how am I going to survive? How are we going to do this? How are we going to raise, get married and raise a family? And it wasn't my wife I was talking to. I was literally talking to another business person, and they told me, they said, if you can make it 5 years, then you'll be fine. And I remember that I've never forgotten that. And they're right. And I think I was reading a post the other day on Facebook by a local business owner, and she said, you got to realize there's so much more to owning your own business, and that's huge. And she was talking about some of the challenges, and it's funny. Even though her business is entirely different than mine, entirely different, we face the same challenges. So I think Bowie itself is a challenge, and I think that anybody who's ever moved here would agree with that. Bowie, when I first moved here, Bowie was a lot more closed in than it is now. A lot more, you kind of had to have, I don't want to say a name, but you kind of had to fit in with the group. I don't think that's the same so much anymore, and I think that's a good thing. I think our city's much more welcoming in that sense. But I also think that part of that is being willing to get out there and mingle and get to know those people. And I think if you're willing to do that, then it opens itself up a lot easier too. I'm a lawyer, so what I do is I argue cases and stuff like that. So every day's a challenge. In some senses. But
have you seen the community change over those 23 years of, I guess, needs? Of issues that people face. Do you find that they get more challenging as through the years, or really in the heart of it, in a small town, the challenge is really the same?
Gosh, that's a good question. Part of me wants to go, oh yeah, they've grown. But then there's a huge part of me that thinks that nothing really ever changes. It's just different. When I first moved to Bowie, that would have been the year 2000. And we were coming off of I like to call it the 90s pop. There was a time in the late 90s, and I wasn't here, so I've heard about it. But it seemed like there was a lot more civic pride. There was a lot of people trying to move and shake, do some things, And we were coming off of that when I moved here. And we went through a period of time when it was the doldrums, if you will, then oil came back and we got another pop, and then we went back to the doldrum, and I hate that that's kind of the pattern that we tend to go through. But I think that, as far as the challenges, I think we still face most of the same ones, which is, giving our kids something to do, keeping our kids engaged and keeping our citizens in general engaged. And I don't mean like recreational activities. I think Bowie's got pretty strong recreational activities, but I think we lack some of the things that keep people in town. We tend to scatter on Friday nights, and that's, unless it's football night. Yeah, that's right. But, I think that if that's a problem that we've had, and I think we still have that problem. I think it's getting better, and I think it will get better. But, growth is hard. We're a long way from the Metroplex. People don't think it, but we are. An hour is a long way, and most people aren't willing to drive that far to go to work. And so we don't get the same growth and things that, like, for instance, Decatur does, so just because they're so much closer. And so we've definitely experienced some of that, and anybody who lives here can feel that, but it's not been the quick growth that we've seen from other towns around us, I guess. So, but as far as the challenges that people have here, I think that they are largely the same. I mean, I think that they've changed, but changed in such a way that the challenges are still the same. They're just, different in the sense of their size or how many people are involved, those kind of things. So,
yeah, and because those things in our community, we do have those that, and I think sometimes we expect a big difference in our town. But it really is the same that it was 25 years ago. They just look different. Our town is the same, it just kind of looks different. It's just kind of...
I would venture to say that our town looks, you go back to 1894 when Bowie was founded, I believe that's right. I'll probably get in trouble now, but I think that's pretty close. You go back then, I bet our town doesn't look that much different. I mean, I should say it looks different, but the issues that we face then are probably similar to the issues we face now. I mean, bringing in industry, bringing in recreational opportunities, jobs, anything, utility costs. I mean, all those things are issues that we've always faced, and no matter what, you always will face them. You can just do better, and I think we've done better over the years. I mean, we've hired some good people, and we've moved people around and done some things that have made a difference.
Yeah, and we have made a difference. We are growing. I think sometimes people don't recognize that. And if they don't, then they need to get involved.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Getting involved, you'll see those things. And you're not always right. I'm gonna throw Randy West a bone here. Randy was on or still may be on the Parks Board back when I was mayor. And back when I was mayor, they wanted to build help me. The recreational center that's down there by the rodeo
community
center.
Yeah.
I couldn't think of the word. But they wanted to build that, and I was adamantly against building it right there. And I was adamantly
right where it's at now?
Yep. And I was adamantly against the concept that they came up with. And, I was just flat wrong. And I'm glad to see what they did and how they did it. And that's a great facility. And that's one of those things, like you said, that we've improved the city because of that. So it also improved the rodeo grounds when they did that too. So that's been a good thing. So
yeah, it gave our community a place to go, a place to hold events. It was just really.
Yep.
So what was the reasoning for being against it?
Oh, it was just aesthetics. I didn't like where it was. I didn't like where it was. I didn't like what they were going to build. It was just aesthetics. Is all it was. But luckily, I was wrong, and it happens.
And then your mayor was over because you moved, but you still stay involved in the community.
Oh, yeah.
You have a business in the community.
Yep, absolutely.
So what makes it about, because you're still part of the community, I think sometimes people think, well, if you don't live here, it can't be your hometown. And we have, people will say, well, I'm an outsider. And I hope that is changing. I think that is changing. And I've never kind of understood that, why you would treat an outsider different, because sometimes they come with better ideas and new things.
Yeah, absolutely.
What makes you call Bowie my hometown?
Well, it just is. I mean, I was born here. I wasn't born. I hate to say that. I wasn't born here, but we lived here when I was born. Is that fair?
Yeah.
I was born in Wichita Falls, but they didn't.
You weren't born at the Bowie Memorial.
No, I don't even know if they were delivering babies at the time, but nevertheless, I mean, it was my hometown when I grew up, and I just took a 21-year hiatus to get here, to get back here. So I don't know. I mean, I think Bowie's got a lot going for it. I really do. I think there's some obstacles and some roadblocks that stand in the way, but we're moving those, and it just takes time, And I'd like to say, there's this one thing that boom, it's going to start, and it's not that way. It's a gradual process of improvement, and what we think is improvement today, they're not going to think is improvement 15 years from now. And you've got to always be willing to kind of move with the tide as it comes in and goes out. But I think Bowie's got a lot going for it, and I think that people. I think we're starting to develop more civic pride and that kind of thing. I think that's been here. But I think just like a lot of things, it's kind of ebbed and flowed as well. So, and I see it. So,
and it does in a small town. It ebbs and flows. And we hope that as it ebbs and flows, it takes that. It goes up. The civic pride, everything involvement. It may have its lows, but the lows are even higher than they were before.
Yeah. I tell you, you asked me what makes it my hometown. Honestly, I've been, and this is a weird way to say this, but it's welcoming. There are times when you don't feel that way, but overall, the people here are welcoming. They I guess maybe as a whole, sometimes it doesn't feel that way. But individually, I've always felt like people are very, welcome to our town, welcome to our organization, our group, our city, all those things. I think that we largely like that. Because we live in the South, I think that's a lot of it. I think being a Texan and being in a town named after one of the quintessential Texans is, pretty cool. So, why do I call it my hometown? Because it is, and it's been an honor to live here. I've been blessed, and my family's been blessed, blessed by so many people. I mean, you may know this, but my kids and my wife all go to school in Decatur. My wife works at Victory Christian Academy as a teacher, and so my kids go there too. And I originally thought this will be the end of Bowie for me. I'll be the guy stuck up in town while they're down there, and that has not been the case. Bowie is so much ingrained in you, and the people. I kind of look at it like we've got two big families. You've got the Bowie family and the Decatur family in the sense of who we go and hang out with and do things with, and I think being part of a church has helped that a lot. You know, being able to stay with a group of people and grow with them.
So you still attend church in Bowie?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're First Baptist Church members and have been for the whole time. So, and it stayed that way. You know, the funniest thing is that we live in Sunset, or actually we don't even live there. We live south of Sunset, and my son, you know, is in college, and he plays on the football team, and the football team has the name of the athlete, their position, and then their hometown, and he goes to a school that there's people from all over the country, and when he first got on that team, I was interested to see what his byline, I guess you'd say, said, and I was pleased to see that it said Bowie, Texas, not Sunset, Texas. Because Bowie is where we've been impacted the most. So, and hopefully been impactful.
And that's a great word, be impacted, but be impactful. My hope is for my hometown, the podcast, that, and has always been, as I talk to business owners, as I talk to people, that if you ever watch Field of Dreams, at the end, James Earl Jones is talking about they'll pull up light, and it shows all the lights, coming up to the baseball field, and they won't know why they're there, but they're hand over the money because it feels like home. And that's what I think about when people come to our community, just like you were talking, that they come in, they don't know really why they're here, but they feel like they belong and they fit in.
It's amazing, and this is a blessing that I get as an attorney. It is amazing to me the number of people who have moved here from other places, whether it be California. I get a lot of California people that have moved in, and we always say don't California or Texas, but they're not. They're coming in, they're putting the boots on and the hat and becoming more Texan than we are. But I meet people from all over. People who move from the Metroplex, people who move from the East Coast. It's a blessing to me to meet that many people. Right here at this table, so many, and it inevitably, very rarely do I hear anybody say, "Gosh, I wish I hadn't done this." Mostly, what I hear is people say, "We're so happy to be here. We love it here. We like this or we like that about this community." And that's pretty cool. It's just really neat to hear that from people and see the way that impacts our community, and I think that we should be welcoming to new people because, like you said earlier, that's new ideas, that's new money, that's new impact. I mean, each person makes an impact. It's Christmas season, and I mean, watch It's a Wonderful Life. I mean, that's all about the impact that you make as an individual. What would life be like without you? It's amazing what it would be. It'd be totally different.
To be impactful, though, we have to get involved. We have to go out and meet our neighbor and see those that maybe aren't our neighbor, but they become our neighbor.
That's right. That's right.
And make a difference.
Sit on the front porch. I always read how we don't have front porches anymore, but maybe they're just virtual now.
So maybe every now and then somebody will drive by the law firm here and see you on the front porch and give one away.
I don't have one of our sheets in here, but one of the things we have on our sheet is, how did you hear about us? And the best are when you see people say, I heard about you from so and so, or another client or something like that. But every now and again, you'll see, I just drove by. It's like, wow, okay. I don't think I sit on the front porch here very often, but nevertheless, And
when you open a practice law firm, it's called hanging your sign.
That's right, hanging your shingle.
Hanging your shingle.
So
they drove by and saw your shingle. And pull in.
My shingle's in a big metal frame out front, but I mean, there's been quite a few of those, over the years. So I mean, it's get involved, get out there. I mean, that's one of the ways that you sit on your front porch is being involved. Meeting people and opening yourself up to conversations and new ideas and things like that. So.
And then how can people that maybe aren't driving by, how can they connect? A website?
Oh yeah, I mean, we've got a website that's under construction right now. We've had multiple iterations over 23 years, but we've got a new one. Silver Bullet Web Services down here is putting it together, and so hopefully after the first year we should have something new out there. But you can still go to the old one. It's www.earplaw.com, EARPLAW.com. And then of course, we're on Facebook, isn't everybody? Or just call us. I mean, most effective way to get in touch with us is just give us a call, and then we can schedule an appointment or phone meeting or whatever the case may be, or the need may be, I guess.
And continue to drive by the office on Walnut Tree, because you might see Brandon out there.
That's right. Look for the single.
And then you can pull on the top.
That's right. Yeah,
It won't cost you to pull in.
That's right.
Just because you're talking on the porch.
Just like
it's free. So, but thank you, Brandon, for joining me on my hometown today. I appreciate it. Appreciate your service. Appreciate you helping and being involved in our community, and being impactful in our community.
Well, I try to be.
Because you are impactful with each person you come in contact with, and you.
We all are.
Yeah.
And it can be good or it can be bad. And I just encourage people to be impactful in a good way. That's what God would want us to do, and what we should want to do. So yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. I've enjoyed it. I was a little nervous, honestly, but it was, like you said, it's just a conversation.
Yeah, just us talking.
Now you know my heart a little bit more.
So knowing I can stop by.
Yeah,
so thank you, Brandon, and thank you to each of you for joining me today and stopping by. And I'm looking forward to seeing you around my hometown.